Good afternoon, and welcome to the studios of the Sun Sentinel. We're live here today with three students who, from Broward County. Two of them go to Marjory Stoneman Douglas High and were there the day of the shooting, and another who is from another high school, part of the student movement. We asked folks to come in today to have an in-depth conversation. You've heard the sound bites on television, but we want to have an in-depth conversation with some of the students from our county to better hear their story, to dig into some of the questions that are out there today, and to engage you really in the conversation that we need to have about how we're going to stop this violence. So let me start by introducing our guests. I'll start with the women first. Ellie Branson, she is a junior at South Broward High School in Hollywood.
Yes.
And Sari Kaufman, sophomore at Marjory Stoneman. And David Hogg, a senior at Marjory Stoneman. So welcome, thank you for coming in today. So it's been 2 weeks. 2 weeks, God, has it really been 2 weeks? And today was the first day back. What was it like for you today, David? Let me ask you first.
Today was a mix of emotions. It was a mix of anger and sadness and also happiness. The anger stemmed from the fact that none of the glass in our school has been replaced with bulletproof glass. None of our locks are able to be locked from the inside. No policy has been implemented to prevent something like this from happening. And as such, we're in the exact same scenario we were 2 weeks ago, except now we have even more guns from police officers.
Were they visible today?
The police officers, their guns were visible, some of them. They were definitely out there as a force and together, which was obviously helped me kind of feel more secure there, but it also kind of worried me because what if there was a blue-on-blue incident where they had like an undercover cop shoot at another one by accident because they misidentified someone. I don't know. Just 1,000 things run through your mind with these scenarios. But I also felt happy because of all the support from around the nation and even around the world. And I felt loved because just seeing all those signs really helped me get through the day. And the dogs were pretty cool too.
Nice. Sari, what was today like for you?
It was really overwhelming. I was really happy with all the support, but at the same time, seeing hundreds of policemen on campus and I definitely saw military-grade weapons on the police. So that definitely frightened me, but at the same time made me feel comfortable, made me feel safe. But if I didn't have the police on campus, like another school, like David was saying, there were no other policies that were implemented today. So without the police presence, it would have been definitely a little more scary.
And what were the conversations like that you had with your friends today?
Some of them were happy seeing our friends again that we haven't seen since the attack. Others were definitely very sad. In my math class, looking over, seeing a desk empty and talking with my friends. Some of my classmates put flowers on that desk, but knowing that we lost someone in our math class and having that discussion of what they were like in class and how it would have been different today if they were in class, it definitely was sad and definitely hard to have that conversation.
And did the teacher lead that conversation?
Some teachers recognized it. I think the teachers were great. They definitely were coached well. Some of them did recognize it, some of them didn't. I was happy in both scenarios, but they definitely led the class to a happy discussion.
Mm-hmm. And David, what were the conversations you had with your friends today?
A lot of the conversations that I had with my friends today were just about policies that we needed to implement, work that we had to do, especially with the hashtag Never Again movement, working with the main people from that, meeting with different school teachers, and really speaking with each other and realizing how happy we should be to have each other. Like my astronomy teacher, Kyle Jeter, or my AP Gov teacher, Mr. Foster. It's rough. It is. Mm-hmm. It's something that will never make school the same again. It's something that you will never be able to make school the same way, but we have to continue on to learn and become an educated democracy, because right now we're a broken, uneducated one.
I want to get to some of the specific policy issues that have come up in this debate. But I want to ask you what it's like to be one of the most recognizable faces of this movement, this student movement. And when you're with fellow students, are there any people who disagree with you at school?
There are some people who do disagree with me at school. I did have some discussions today about different takes on gun control, but that's good. It means we're taking a step in the right direction. Because if I want to make my voice heard and I want other people to listen to me, I need to listen to them first. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've been really doing today, trying to work through some of my policies, like raising the minimum age to own a gun to 21, and perhaps having people get more training to own a gun or something like that. Just reasonable gun policies and talking about how we're going to change the future.
Mm-hmm. Did you know the shooter?
I did not know the shooter. Mm-hmm. I refused to say his name on media, but I didn't know him. He was a loner, and he was a coward.
And you told me earlier that there was one student who was rather aggressive with you today. What was that about?
That was about raising the minimum age of gun ownership to 21. In my AP Gov class, I was having a heated discussion with this person, but the bell rung, so we couldn't finish. But I did understand their viewpoint, where if we're going to be arming many of these individuals that are going out into across the world for the United States military at the age of 18 with very large weapons, he did make a good point that we should probably allow 18-year-olds in America to own those guns. But I say, in response to that, I just think it's too easy to get a gun even at such a young age for people to be irresponsible, because the difference between people getting guns in the military when they're at the age of 18 and just your average 18-year-old getting a gun is the fact that when you're in the military, you have training, you have discipline, and you have responsibilities. People that are obtaining these guns, though, that are not in the military are not required to get any safety training. They're not required to essentially do anything other than just pay however much money it costs to get a weapon of mass destruction, like many of these weapons are.
And to the question about what is it like to become a face that people recognize, what's that like?
It's very annoying. I shouldn't have to be. I don't want to be. But it's something that I feel that I have to do because those 17 others can't. And to be honest with you, if I wish that I didn't exist in terms of the media coverage that I've been getting. I wish I could be out there just standing up with everybody else, not having to lead this with Cameron Caskey, Emma Gonzalez, and so many others. I wish that the media focus was really just on the people that are taking action and on the 17 people that died, because those are the people that really matter here, and those are the voices that are going to be lost in that they can't speak up anymore, and we have to on their behalf. But
and who do you see as the people taking action?
Every day, people from my generation, honestly, high schoolers that are stepping up and saying that we're not going to take this anymore. We're going to take action, and we're going to save our future because our parents won't, and our politicians certainly will not.
Ellie, let me turn to you. What's the conversation like in your school in Hollywood?
In Hollywood, we're discussing constantly on what we can do in the future and what we as students can do, as well as teachers that are supporting the students. In Hollywood, and simply in every single class, we're having a discussion because how can this not be talked about? I've been seeing several articles in the news about why is this shooting different? But I think that this shooting is not different. While it's getting more coverage, I think that it's just as important as all the other shootings, and that it's just I can't believe it's taking this long for people to actually be doing something about it. I was telling my friends when we first organized the protest at South Broward, I can't believe this has taken this long. But they were saying and comforting me, oh, we're only 16, but what about the politicians that are taking this long? They're getting money, and that's why they're not doing anything. Marco Rubio has received $3.3 million from the NRA. Donald Trump has received over $30 million, and that's why they're not doing anything.
But you know, it's more than the money. I mean, the money is absolutely important for helping them get their message out with ads and mailers. But there are a lot of people in this country who vote on this one issue, and they really believe that we're going to limit. Let me turn to you.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up, because I think there are a lot of people that do vote on this issue, but polls have shown that there is over 97% support for universal background checks in this country. That shows that those people are clearly not getting out and vote because the NRA is not only making it so that people that are inspired by them get out and vote. But they're making it so people that are like just your average Joe like me that's going to be voting in November, they don't feel like their voice is heard. And the NRA is working extremely hard to ensure that their voice is heard more than ours because of their public spending. And I know that there are many people that are passionate about this topic, but there are far more people like all of us here and the future generations that are coming that are way more passionate and that are going to outlive people at the NRA and in the GOP and in every single political organization that's supported by these child murderers at the NRA.
And do you think there is widespread agreement in your school for, what is there would you say there's widespread agreement, this is what we got to do? And what is it that people, widespread agreement, thinks we ought to do?
Well, just like in America in my school, you have a wide diversity of ideas on both the far left and right sides of the political spectrum. But what you have to realize here is that it's the people that are in between that are really making their voices heard now, and that's the difference here. It's the more moderate people like me that think that we should have the Second Amendment, but we should have limitations on it in the same way that we have limitations on the First. You shouldn't be able to get a weapon of mass destruction if you're a mentally ill individual. You shouldn't be able to get one if you're a mentally ill individual, a person with a criminal background, or somebody that's committed acts of domestic violence in the past. It's as simple as that. It's reasonable gun reform that makes us safer and still enables people to own guns. I don't get what's so hard to get behind here. It just is the fact that people like Governor Rick Scott, Marco Rubio, and different senators and Republican lawmakers and some Democrat lawmakers across the country refuse to take action because they're the puppets of the NRA.
And Sari, among the people you talk to, do you get a sense there's widespread agreement about what needs to get done?
Since we all witnessed the same event, there's definitely widespread agreement that we do need to have some type of gun reform, so we don't have to experience this event again. But like David said, since there's so much different diversity in our school, there is different views of how we can accomplish that.
And where do you see those different views? I mean, what are some of the different views? Where are the differences among students?
Some are that we shouldn't have any assault ban on any on weapons.
Have you heard a student say that?
Yes,
Yeah.
I have, definitely.
Really? And why do they think that?
Some students have told me that there's too many loopholes if we have that. Some other students, I actually know one student who likes to have that type of gun to go out and have and enjoy shooting
Really?
that type of gun.
And how old is that student?
18 years old.
Okay.
So
It is a wide diversity of ideas, and people are understandably concerned that their Second Amendment rights are going to be infringed upon, but that's not what we're doing here. Just like in the same way that we're able to speak here today as American citizens with our First Amendment right, we aren't committing any acts that are putting us in a clear and present danger. But what is putting us in a clear and present danger is assault weapons being thrown into our schools and being funded by the NRA. That's what's killing us. That's what's killing our children, and that's what's killing our future. That is why we're taking action. We have to do something. We have to take action, because if we don't, our politicians certainly won't.
And I might want to come back to that, but Ellie, are there differences of opinion, or do you think that there is a groundswell among the people that you know to do something about assault weapons, or do you hear differences of opinion even among people your age?
I hear differences of opinion everywhere, but I think that generally, while people have differences of opinions, there is definitely a consensus that we have to do something. And not even just something, but there's definitely a consensus that we need universal background checks. And that most people in my generation and of the people that I'm talking to, there's a very small minority of people that suggest that are opposed to raising the age to obtain guns. But I think that there is a huge consensus of that people need to do something, and that we can't just let this be another shooting, that nothing happens and no policy changes.
One of the reactions to this has been, we're not going, because there's so much polarization on the gun debate, that let's not start there. Let's start with schools. Let's start with hardening schools. Do you feel safe in school? What do you feel about, is there an SRO at South Broward High?
Yes, there is, but I don't think that makes people feel safe.
Why is that?
We've seen what happens in different schools. Everyone hears about the shootings, and then following the shooting, we just think the children are desensitized. This has become a new normal for the United States, And it's just become something that we have to constantly hear about and deal with. I know that people were not feeling safe going to school. I still don't feel safe. I feel like there's not going to be a day for the rest of my life where I don't think about the 17 people that died in Parkland. And I think that there shouldn't be a day where this is not remembered.
You know, when I was a little kid, we had drills to get under our desk because we thought that Cuba, you know, had these missiles that they were going to attack the U.S. And then, you know, the next generation has the fire drills. I mean, I know that everybody still does the fire drills, but we never had anything like a Code Red, which is the drill for an active shooter on school. Part of what Tallahassee's talking about is making it a legal law for, I don't even know how often the Code Red drills must happen. But do you regularly have Code Red drills at your school?
I wouldn't say so. I would say South Broward is quite advanced when it comes to security, and that there have been a lot more security precautions following the shooting. But I would say that while I am in favor of increasing school security and making sure that this doesn't happen, I think that we should be addressing the problem straight on having access to guns. I think that school security precautions are necessary, but I think that we should be addressing the clear issue of obtaining guns in America. While we do need to take action to make sure that things like this don't happen for the guns that will inevitably still be able to be obtained in the country, I think that it's necessary to attack the direct cause of the issue.
And is your school a single point of entry campus?
Yes, now we are a single point of entry campus, but we are lucky enough to have that. Other schools and other places don't have that opportunity to have the true security that we need.
And why does there's one SRO on your campus?
Yes.
And why does that not really do it in terms of making you feel safe?
Because it's so accessible. It's so easy for someone to come in with a weapon that can kill you. It's so easy for someone to bring something in their book bag. It's so easy to turn your shoulder and feel scared.
Do you support the metal detectors?
I would say that that is a good idea and a step in the right direction, but I would still say that it's important to start with policy changes now and not wait longer, especially with the limitations and how legislation in Florida is so close to ending.
I've also heard concerns about how long it'll take everybody to go through those metal detectors. How many, do you have? David, you wanted to say something?
I think that it's also important to point out the fact that there's one school resource officer at my school, or there was, for over 3,300 students. That's not enough. My high school is huge. And again, it's a tough topic because you can either have more school resource officers and feel more secure, but what ends up happening is, as a side effect, we have racial discrimination where black students are incarcerated 3 times as more as white students and it only widens the school to prison pipeline. And it also scares students, along with those metal detectors, as you were saying. It creates a system where it feeds into the NRA, where they sell more guns, make more money, get people reelected, and continue this vicious cycle of fear-mongering and gun sales that they've continued.
Sari, what is a Code Red drill like?
We actually haven't practiced it that many times at Douglas. When this shooting was going on, we thought it was a Code Red drill. And it's definitely frightening to even have to have these type of drills in our society today. All the students get frightened when we have to turn off all the lights, go into the closet, be as quiet as we can. So to have this as a regular thing it disrupts our ability to learn in the classroom.
Is that what the drill is? You go in the closet?
It depends in each classroom.
Oh.
Again, we never had a single Code Red drill at our school. I don't know why this is so hard for people to understand. We never had a single Code Red drill at our school.
I heard a coach talk about, boy, we really drilled on this Code Red this year.
No, we talked about it. A drill and a talk are 2 different things, and the media needs to realize that. Like, that's the one thing that, a lot of organizations have got wrong here. We did not have a single actual, active shooter drill. In a fire drill, how you go outside, because that's where you're supposed to go during a fire. We didn't have a drill where there were actors, where there was fake blood and there was stuff like that. No, we had a talk. A talk is not a drill. We thought this was a drill as a result.
And so just from talking about it, what are you supposed to do in a code red drill?
We don't know. We were never told.
One of my teachers even said, like, if there's a fire drill and a active shooter, we were like, well, what should we do? And they basically said, I don't know.
Yeah,
it could be a shooting range for the shooter. Like, that's what they said.
And
we never even practiced it.
We asked them, like, what if the shooter just shoots through the glass? Is this glass bulletproof? And they're like, nope, but they don't want to spend that money. What's that say about our lives? What's that say about what these politicians like Marco Rubio, Rick Scott, and so many others, what does that say about them? The fact that they don't care about our future, they care about their re-election. There's a reason that Rick Scott is implementing all of these new policies that he's putting in place a year from now. It's not a coincidence that's around his run for Senate. And it's not a coincidence he's calling out Bill Nelson. Notice how he's not calling out Marco Rubio, who also hasn't implemented any of these laws? Wonder why. It's because he's running for Senate. He's turning this tragedy into a political pawn, and it's disgusting.
But he's done more.
He's talked more. He hasn't done more. Let's get that straight.
Okay, good point. But he is talking about doing more and helping. Well, let's give the due. Doing things in Tallahassee that have not been discussed in Tallahassee for about 20 years.
And you know why? Because when we were in Tallahassee, we were only able to meet with one Republican lawmaker that would meet with us. We had a day chocked full of interviews. Only one Republican lawmaker met with us.
Who was that?
I forget who it was because I was not there, but all of my other co-sponsors from the Never Again movement were there. And it was a Republican lawmaker from Miami. She was a woman, and she was a Republican.
Anna Terry Flores.
Yeah.
Dark hair.
I believe so. She was the only person that met with us. I couldn't get there because my plane was delayed, but that's what I'm pushing here. We should have been having these talks 20 years ago after Columbine. This shouldn't be happening now. I shouldn't have to be out here being so mad at these politicians and having to honestly threaten the entire state's economy to get action. Notice how only after I said boycott Florida and don't come here for spring break, that's when actual stuff started to happen. It's because these politicians only care about money. They don't care about our lives. They care about their re-election.
Let me ask you just more about, and we'll get to the boycott call. Who arranged the trip to Tallahassee and who you would meet with?
I believe that was Jackie from our campaign. I'm press secretary, so I honestly have been focusing much more on the media and that side of things, so I can't really tell you much
But there
more
were
about that.
efforts to reach out to other Republican
Absolutely.
members?
We had a day full of meetings with these Republican lawmakers, and many of them just didn't show up.
Oh, they took the meeting and then they didn't show up?
I went on a different trip with my congregation, and when we went, they coincidentally had a House committee meeting every time we tried to go and talk to a Republican.
Shocking.
Oh.
So.
And did you have that same experience with Democrats?
No, we were able to talk to them, but we weren't really aiming to talk to the Democrats.
Yeah,
more to the
we aren't trying to make this, we're not trying to make this a partisan issue. I'm just pointing out the facts here. Democrats met with us a lot more than the Republicans, and that's because the Democrats, obviously this fits somewhat into their agenda, but it also fits into the Republicans. They could have talked to us just about mental health care and taken action on that, but they didn't. And there are Democrats that are supported by the NRA. I'll acknowledge that, there are. But a disproportionate amount of GOP senators, congressmen, and even presidents are supported by the NRA. What does that say? Especially when they refuse to take action and even meet with some of the witnesses of this tragedy. What does that say about our democracy? It's disgusting. And the fact that we're like, wow, we have to respect Marco Rubio for showing up at the town hall. Why are we even having that discussion? Did
he say anything that night that made you...
well, yeah.
At least, okay, and do give him credit. At least he did show up when others did
but
not.
It shouldn't be that way. We shouldn't be like, wow, thank you so much for actually listening to us. We elect these people.
Right.
They're supposed to listen to us.
Right. Agreed. What did you make of what he said that night?
I was disgusted, to be quite frank with you. The fact that he would say that he would not take any money from the NRA is a testament to the disgusting state that he has brought this country to, along with so many other lawmakers.
But what about his point about willing to talk about or think about the high-capacity magazine?
That's a step in the right direction. I'll acknowledge that.
Okay.
It definitely is. And I mean, that's what I'm pushing here. But you also have to focus on what these people are saying. Notice how we asked Marco multiple times a one-word answer to a question, and that is, will you accept monetary donations from the NRA in the future? He said, yes, he will, in a 5-sentence answer trying to sidestep this question because he's trying to distract us. They're trying to make us forget about this. There's a reason that the session didn't meet with us. They're expecting the media to go away. They're expecting us to not be talking about this. We're not going to let that happen because this is our future and we're taking it back.
How do you keep it alive? How do you keep it going?
That passion that I bring to it, the passion that these individuals bring to it, realizing that we are going to outlive these individuals at the NRA like Dana, that are only, they aren't, I'm not against the people in the NRA. I'm against the people at the top of the NRA that don't listen to the majority of individuals within there. As I said earlier, there's widespread support for universal background checks, but the NRA always fights that. The NRA doesn't even allow bump stocks at their shooting ranges, but there is such support for that in their community, and it's not even from a majority of them. It's from the top. Dana's not speaking on behalf. Dana, the national spokesperson, is not speaking on behalf of her organization. She's speaking on behalf of the gun lobby to sell more guns, murder more children, scare more people, and make more money.
Okay, let me go back just to the, I'm still curious about this school hardening thing. It's been a long time since I've been in school. And one of the things I didn't understand, the sad story of the geography teacher who opened the door to let more people in, but then there was the lock. Can you not lock how does a lock on one of these school doors work?
So it's only on the outside. So what Mr. Beagle was doing is he was letting kids in, and when he was saving these kids' lives, he had to step back out of the classroom to then lock the door, and that is when he got shot. So if we are able to bring the locks inside the classroom, he would have been able to open the door, let the kid in, lock it. He didn't have to go outside, be open to the shooter, and then that's...
So he was not able to get back into he had to go outside and lock it, and then he locked himself on the outside?
No, I believe he had foot in, foot outside.
So you can lock it on the outside and then shut the door and have locked yourself in from the outside?
No, I think you're getting this wrong.
How does it work?
You can make it so that if it's locked on the outside, you can get out, but you can't lock it from the inside. In the same, if you're in a bathroom, if this was a door handle in a bathroom, you can't, there's physically no way to lock it from inside the classroom. You can only lock it from the outside, and that's what I believe he was trying to do.
Okay.
But that's what's disgusting here. They aren't even replacing these locks that can be, they aren't even replacing these locks that have been taken out.
How do you secure, you've not had a code red, so how do you secure yourselves in the room and to keep this shooter from coming in? Or do you just push desks?
See, but that's also the problem because of hurricane codes in Florida. All the doors open out, so that they seriously, that's a huge issue too. The doors have to open out so the wind doesn't blow in during the hurricanes, but we can't barricade the doors as a result of that. And also, we can't lock them from the inside. None of these locks have been replaced with locks that are both on the inside and outside. So still, if there was a shooting right now at Douglas, there would have to be people that are out there having to go out and lock their doors and make sure that they are locked, even if they wanted to let these individuals in. And they would have to lock it from the outside, get their keychain, get their key in, twist it 4 times or however many times it is, then come back inside the classroom if they're not already shot to death. That's disgusting.
I know they're talking about the steel doors as part of this school hardening. They're talking about steel doors.
See, but what I'm hearing is a lot of talking, no action.
Well, actually, I got to say, a bill has moved through the Florida House, appropriations, or Senate, and then yesterday through the House. It's on its way to the floor. It is both chambers and the governor are talking about raising the age limit from 18 to 21. To me, that seems like such a...
It is a big step, yeah.
See, I think it's a baby step.
It's a baby step.
I think it's just, wow, that's the most, But they will argue back that that's not all we're doing. There is an effort to do away with bump stocks, and...
We just have to hold our elected officials accountable. That's really what we have to do here. And that's why they're finally starting to take action. I do acknowledge that. I've been extremely critical of them because they haven't taken action in the past, and many of them still aren't, but they are. At this point, some of them are.
And do you want more SROs, school resource officers, on campus?
That's a good question, and I don't have the research or knowledge to really comment on that. I'm not a professional researcher well-known university or something. I don't have the data to back up any
Well,
of the
and I'll
arguments
tell
I'm
you
making
there,
that.
because of the gun lobby, Congress does not allow
Exactly,
the
'cause the
CDC
CDC
to
can't
do
research
gun
it.
research.
And
We would
also-
know the answers to some of these
Exactly.
questions if the federal researchers were allowed to research it, but they don't even want the
Exactly.
research done because
you
who
know-
knows what the answers might
You,
show.
you know what else is insane? It's the fact that all gun records, by law, in ATF records, they have to be paper. Like during
Yes,
Katrina, that was a
yes,
huge issue.
yes.
They lost so many gun law, like,
Yeah, there's no registry. It can't be put in a computer, so you have to
Yep,
go
you have to
flip through pieces of
Yep.
paper. Yeah, it's not very efficient in this.
and I wonder who put that law through. I really do.
Right. Yeah. So, okay, let's talk about, okay, so what Tallahassee says they're doing, which is at least where we're seeing some action. We're seeing this hardening of schools, and we're seeing, which is the SRO and the steel doors and different locks. I don't know how that works. That's a good point you just made. And then another thing they're talking about is mental health. But as far as I read it, and maybe you've dug deeper into it, it's like, you know, assuring that students get access to a mental health counselor at least once a year. What do you see, if I could ask you, on the issue of mental health in your school? Is your experience that sometimes you see a kid who's like, really, boy, that kid's off. Boy, that kid's threatening. I'm a little scared about, boy, if anybody's going to be a school shooter, it's going to be that kid. Are there those kinds of kids in your school?
Unfortunately, I think the culture of the nation right now is to make jokes about, oh, that kid could possibly be a school shooter. But I don't think that's appropriate at all. I don't think that joking about this issue, or even the spokesperson for the NRA, Dana, she was suggesting like, oh, psychos. I think that alienating people for having mental health issues and demonizing is just awful. I think that these issues should be addressed and that people should be cared for and listened to. But I think that there's such a culture nowadays of making fun of someone or suggesting that they're, just because they have mental health issues, that they are lower. And I think that if action was taken and that if people were cared for and listened to, that these things could be prevented. But I think that also the action that some people are suggesting, like, for example, the ones of teachers being able to have guns, is just based off of the vested interest that the NRA has to make more money. Obviously, they're opposed to taking away guns and making them harder to be accessed because of the economic gain that they're going to get from it.
Okay, I swear I'm going to get to that, but I just want to probe a little more on this mental health, because the NRA side will say that, you know, it's not the guns, these are people who are mentally disturbed. In your opinion, in high school, do you see a crying need for more mental health services available at the school? Or is that something you think, you know, boy, in a family, you guys should be taking care of that at home? What's your opinion about providing access to more mental health screenings and counseling in a school?
I think that is necessary. Obviously, we can have sanctions inside schools for taking care of kids, but we can't really have and organize those things at home. Not everyone will have the same family. Not everyone will have the same understanding with their parents. Healthcare, exactly.
Right.
And I think that it's necessary to actually do something about this. And while some parents are supporting and will do it, some people won't even actually see mental health as a real issue. In some families, especially in the diversity that is Florida, people don't actually see mental health as a real issue in some families and in some communities. And I think that if we actually had things in school implemented, and if we had health care that was supported by our government and not cut constantly, especially mental health care, looking online, there was a photo of a bunch of members of the GOP clapping after they were getting legislation passed to cut mental health care funding, and now that they're suggesting that they should up it. And it's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
They'll do anything to get more money and to get re-elections and to make sure that they can live happily with their pensions.
Do you think that part of the criticism or the belief of the student uprising, you know, pushing back, demanding action on this. Part of it is that Broward is such a Democratic county, and that we are not, we're the bluest county in Florida, that we're liberal, we're so liberal down here, and look at these students. You guys have an opinion on that?
I think that that's suggesting more of a partisan connection, and I think that they're just trying to do that to divide us even more. A lot of people, regardless of what party or affiliations that they have, they are in support of these reasonable ideas and reasonable reform. Like, they're trying to suggest that this is a liberal topic or this is a blue topic just to get away from the people that are actually doing this to us and that are putting our lives in harm's way. They're trying to divide us even more by suggesting that there's affiliation and by suggesting that this is, a blue idea, when it really is just a logical idea to help prevent this from happening.
If anything, we're trying to spill less red, and that's blood on our classrooms' floors. What's more nonpartisan than lives? That's my question. And Republicans say that they want to have more mental health care. And what I hate to see in this country is, again and again, we have these arguments, and we get both pushed to the opposite sides of the political spectrum. The Republicans are like, we only care about mental health care, but then they cut funding. Honestly, what is going on?
And we didn't take the Medicaid money,
Exactly.
under the expansion of Obamacare that would have helped pay for more people to have access.
And you know what? It's because that makes too much sense, and it saves too many children their lives and helps raise the quality of life for people. And granted, it does cost a lot of money. Work with healthcare providers to lower those costs. It's an insurance problem too in this country. The fact that we have such high costs as a result of the high competitiveness and the monopolization and obviously the capitalization on healthcare in this country. That's what these politicians need to be focusing on. Honestly, it's just disgusting to see them.
So you're 17, so you're senior, going to college, getting letters about where you're going to go to college?
Not really, but yeah.
Okay, waiting for those. One of my questions is about voting, and is there anything I've heard that there are programs where the supervisor of elections goes into schools and pre-registers students even before?
And I'm glad you bring that up, because there is a program for that today, but I did have somebody look up to see if they were registered today at our very own school, but that registered last year, and they were not able to find themselves as registered on the state of Florida's website to see if you're registered.
Are they 18?
They aren't 18, but because of the Motor Voter Act, you don't have to be to register.
Okay.
You can also register when you get your driver's license. And also, there's a huge problem where students at lesser socioeconomic status schools in Marjory, Stoneman, Douglas, they don't get represented. They don't get registered to vote as much. And that's a huge problem. I would like to see a national day like a week from now where every single high school in America has a registrar go there and register every single student, regardless of party, get them registered, and make sure that they go out and are at least registered to vote, because you can't vote in most states unless you're registered, because it's a closed primary.
Right.
And it's another way to alienate students. And what I think it's important for people to realize here is it can be extremely annoying to register because it looks very complicated. That's what these people want. They don't want your voice to be heard. They want to control you. Don't let them. Be a democracy. Make your voice heard.
Ellie, how about in your school? Is there talk about voting or getting registered to vote?
We do have events at the school where there are things to pre-register, but I think that, especially like David said, these events are not as pushed as other events. I think that you'll hear more about prom and about homecoming, but not about actually voting and having decisions made that you are in favor of. I think that there's so much of a push for social events, but there's not really for being active in your community. I think that it is so necessary and important, regardless of whatever your view is. Even if you disagree with me, I think that it is necessary that you actually vote in the election. I think that if your opinion is popular, I think that it should actually be shown in the policy of the nation. And I think that it's just necessary for the well-being.
And like some of the issues that we're having here is like, do you want a representative that's a trustee or a delegate? And I think what we're starting to see here is like we need somebody that's more of a delegate and listens to the people, not themselves and these special interests. This needs to be more of a democracy and less of an oligarchy ruled by, like, honestly at this point, the GOP right now, because they control both the House and Senate and the executive branch. They haven't passed really any major legislation regarding mental health, even though they say that's what they want. Maybe they should actually stop talking and start doing.
Well, and the same is true in Tallahassee too. Both chambers are controlled by Republicans and the governor. So let's flip back to Tallahassee. One of the proposals is to arm teachers. Now this is, let's talk a little bit about that. These are teachers who would volunteer. They would have to have concealed weapons permits. They'd have to have 132 hours of training, really deep training. Apparently they would only be allowed to pull their gun if there's an active shooter, not if you shoved me. It would allow, there's talk about, well, maybe more law enforcement people would come and be teachers. That if somebody wants to carry a gun into a school, be a teacher, wear it on their body all of the time, and so they're in that classroom trying to protect their kids, and here comes this shooter, what is your sense of, if a teacher wants to do that, should they be allowed to do that?
No. I don't think that any amount of training is enough for safety of the students. I think that this idea is being pushed only for the fact that the NRA wants to sell more guns to schools, and they want to make more money and more profit off of now the idea of safety, which was never an option before.
And fear-mongering, too.
Exactly. Do you think that we're going to feel safe with more guns, more weapons that are going to threaten our lives?
Exactly. Imagine a scenario where, your geometry teacher is going along, and they get taken out by a school shooter, and you have to pick up the gun to defend yourself. What if you get misidentified as a school shooter? The GOP response to that is going to be, well, we need more school IDs. No, we don't. You don't have time to look at an ID. You have time to either decide if it's you or them in these scenarios.
Well, apparently, you're supposed to wear this vest, that's going to be bright pink or something. That's a teacher with a gun,
That's great target practice for these shooters, honestly.
And then really in the excitement of it all. And then you think about the smoke, there was a fire, there was smoke.
Yep.
But I guess it's really just that they would stay in their classroom. It's not that they would go out and hunt the person down. They're not supposed to be a police force. It's just that if they're in the room, trying to protect you in the closet, at least if somebody does manage to get this door open and come in, they would have something.
See,
what do you think about that, Sari?
It sounds all good, in talk, but once you're in a classroom, and if a teacher becomes too aggressive and they have a weapon that can kill you right on their leg, that just takes away the innocence of us that we're supposed to learn in these type of classrooms. And also, if a teacher becomes too aggressive and they lose their temper, you don't want them to have a weapon that can kill you right away.
And we can be put in the crossfire. It's not like anything, if them having a gun won't prevent us from getting shot or injured ourselves. Them having a gun will only increase the idea that our lives are fragile and that we can just be taken away so quickly.
And it's going to scare us even more.
Exactly.
And it's going to make us want to go out to buy more guns and help the NRA and keep funding them. That's what's going on here. That's what they're trying to do, is scare us more. And the important thing to realize here is no matter the amount of training that you have, you can't train out of instinct. A teacher is, I think you guys would agree on this, if one of your teachers was in these scenarios, they're going to go out and try fighting this person and leave all of you behind. And it's not like they're even going to be able to get back in the classroom after that door closes, because that door is going to be locked, and guess what? You can't unlock it from the inside. You have to go out and open it.
Mm-hmm. Do you hear, did anybody talk about this issue at school today?
Not really. We just talked about gun policy, and we talked a lot more about, we did talk about some of the bulletproof class. I even talked to Superintendent Runcie about that. We talked about gun policy, and we talked a lot more about the 17 individuals were lost, but it was just a lot more anger. There were a lot of jokes today in my AP Environmental Science class by me, just relating our government to garbage, because that's what we were learning about when this shooting happened.
You were learning about what?
Garbage. Municipal waste.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Ironic, right?
Huh. And how about you, Sari? Was there any, you're teachers.
Some of my teachers have said they do not want to have even the opportunity to be able to arm themselves with these weapons, and they don't think their colleagues should have these weapons, even if it's by their choice.
Did you have that conversation today?
Yes, some of my teachers have said that, and they want to, we are not innocent anymore, but we want to have other schools keep their innocence. And if you have a teacher who is carrying this type of weapon, your innocence is gone. If you see that every day, you don't want to get used to that.
Mm-hmm. How about you? Your teachers, what sense do you get from your teachers?
I think that there's a general consensus among the teachers that they don't want a weapon. If they wanted a weapon, they would have signed up for another position, another career to get one. And I think that of the teachers, I specifically have one who said that if they had a gun, that they would do something. But I think, just like David said, talk is different from action. And that I think that you can say you're going to do something all the way up until it happens, but then when it happens, you don't know what you're going to do. You don't have control over it. And I think that the idea and the policy that we're trying to push is pushing for control, is pushing for limitations so that these things won't happen as often. I think that the amount of shootings that have happened in 2018 is disgusting. I think that so many lives are taken and they're seen as nothing, or just a price even. I think that it's ridiculous that people are dying and that there's still nothing they're going to do. I think it's ridiculous that they're suggesting that we get more guns to teachers and sell more guns for the NRA so that they can make more money, to just continue lobbying and continue giving money to the officials that continue to let this happen.
Do you know how much Marco Rubio took for each of those 17 people that died at my school's lives from the NRA? It's $176,000 for each of those 17 people's blood.
Well, I don't think he would put it that way.
Of course he wouldn't,
How
because he
he
wants to get
puts
reelected.
it is that, they buy into his agenda, and his agenda, has been what it has been
To murder
for
children.
a long time. No, his agenda is that he believes in pretty much unfettered access to guns because,
He
a
wants the
lot
money
of
from the
a lot
NRA.
of people want their guns. Florida leads the nation in concealed carry permits. There's over 1 million. And Adam Putnam, who is running for governor and who's as agriculture commissioner oversees all of that, he boasts about a million plus. And the point being that there are a lot of people who feel safer carrying their guns.
And they can. And again, I'm not going after your Second Amendment rights here. We were talking about schools, not being out in the public here. We're talking about schools, and we're saying that we don't feel comfortable having teachers with guns. We feel comfortable with anybody else that wants to own a gun that is a mentally stable individual, somebody with no criminal background, and somebody without a history of domestic violence. They can own whatever gun they want, honestly. So long as they are a responsible gun owner, somebody that wants to take responsibility, even get training and be safe, because those are not the people that are committing these atrocities. It's these mentally unstable individuals. It's important to point that out. We're not against people owning guns. We're against mentally unstable individuals and honestly just people that are committing these atrocities getting these guns. We don't want to restrict the Second Amendment rights. We were talking about schools, not the general public.
Sort of as your hometown newspaper, this has been run the opinion pages. We have received so many people who want to have their voices heard in our community. And one of the voices I think of is Jesse Jackson, Reverend Jesse Jackson, who called, and his point was, great with your marches and all, it gets it out front, but get out and vote, get registered, get out and vote. I'm thinking too of a piece we ran from somebody who was involved in the Sandy Hook response. And their reaction was, students, don't get co-opted by people or gun safety folks. Don't get co-opted by them, and shoot for the stars. Don't just go for, little incremental, go for the big stuff. But there is this suggestion out there that the student movement is being co-opted or funded by people behind the scenes. And I have to say this, as we were trying to get students together here, there was we were bumping up against some PR company that, was kind of controlling the message, and gosh, what's that about? So what's going on behind the scenes that is helping to organize this massive march? And and to those who say it is co-opting the movement?
Mm-hmm. Honestly, it's us being very pissed off and us wanting to take action and take back our lives, complaining on Twitter a lot, and honestly just taking action that way. We are supported by some famous people, but we started this. We're going to continue this, and we're going to live through this because we have to. What do you guys think?
I think that they're just trying to suggest that this is not what we think and this is not how we feel. If I don't feel safe, I don't feel safe. And I don't think that it's nice to suggest that we're doing something because someone else wants us to do something. If we feel this way, we're passionate about this. We want safety in schools. We want to feel safe. I want action. I don't want any more condolences. I want things to happen in our government, and I don't want people to suggest that this is not how I feel. If I don't feel safe, I don't feel safe, and I don't think that you guys feel safe either.
I think it's also a problem because it's dividing us even more, and it's putting us. They're trying to put us on different political parties, and that's a huge problem. And we just want to feel safe. We are not on a certain political party.
And honestly, I think that's really what the NRA is trying to do here, is divide us more so that more people get scared, go out and buy guns, and they're trying to manipulate even our message. And they're trying to say that we as just kids that are trying to advocate for our friends' lives, they've manipulated us and said that we're trying to take people's guns, but we're not. We're out to advocate for our children's lives and our future. As a result, we aren't here to take anyone's guns. We're here to take back lives.
And how do you get organized, though? I mean, how do you organize
Twitter.
this?
That's
Twitter.
really it. The
so
utilization
Twitter is the social media platform of the
third
movement.
Great Awakening. Yeah.
Not the Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook. It's Twitter.
It's Twitter.
And what is the hashtag you guys all use?
Never again.
Yeah.
Never again.
that's
Never
me.
Again is the main one. There were different ones as we were starting up, but I think that Never Again is the one that's held the most because this should never happen again. It should have never happened again.
It should never
every
have even
single
happened,
past shooting, but this will be the last. And I think that legislation should pass before the time runs out. And if I hear one senator, if I hear one person suggest that they need gun reform after time runs out in Florida, it'll just be so upsetting because the possibility that this can still happen again, it could happen at my school. Someone was just telling me that they had a bomb threat at their school, and someone told me that a police officer accidentally shot themselves in the leg, and they thought that another shooting was happening because the kids never know if it's real. Every time there's a drill, we always think to ourselves, this could be real. My life could be in danger right now, and I would have no way of knowing.
So we're doing this on Facebook Live, and we've asked people if they have a comment or question. And Emma Kate is here helping us keep track of those. Emma Kate.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So the comment section has become very much a discussion about what things are going on. We'd love more questions for you guys. One thing that a lot of people are saying, and David, I'm sure you're beyond sick of hearing this, they're saying you are a crisis actor. Like, what does that make you think and feel, and how frustrating is it?
You're doing a great job of advertising this movement. You're keeping this in the media. I want you guys to know that if I could go out and shake every one of your hands and you could feel the warmth of my blood and the coldness that people like you have brought to 17 other individuals at my school, I wish that you could go out and I could honestly just meet every one of you, and so that you guys could realize I'm an actual person. I wish I brought my yearbook so I could show you exactly what's happened. I understand that many of you are infuriated, and I'm sorry that you've lost faith in America, but we certainly haven't. And honestly, at this point, I don't care what you say. I don't care what you do. You're never going to stop us. And yeah, that's all I have to say. Great job of advertising us, though. Thank you.
What about the issue of, I guess because you are so articulate and forceful, strong, and have something to say, you can become a lightning rod. And I know that you've had some, daggers, figuratively thrown at you. But you seem fearless. And then you call for the ban on tourism over spring break. What has been the reaction to that?
It's actually been very good. Politicians are actually taking action. Some people are actually going to Puerto Rico instead. So, politicians I was on a call with Congressman Ted Deutsch and another representative from Miami. Forgive me, I don't remember their name, but it was a state representative, and we were talking about a bill a few days ago that was going to pass, or was expected to pass at least. And I knew that was because of the economic reform, because they immediately asked me if this bill passed, would I say come back to Florida? That's what this is really about. It's economics. That's what everything's about. And I don't want to.
And what were the broad strokes of the bill that they thought would get you to say, yeah, I'll do it for that?
Well, one of the main things was raising the age to 21, which I know many people don't agree with, but It did include more funding for training of teachers. That was part of the compromise. It was much more spending on mental health care, finally. And obviously just a few broad reforms that really made sense to me as a small step in a much bigger direction, and a step that we could work on with our current House and Senate at the Florida level and at the federal.
Have other people, has this tourism ban idea, are people buying it? So you said people are buying into it?
Absolutely. I have been contacted from multiple people. Don't remember any of their specific names because so many people have contacted me, but people from Quebec have said that they're going to Puerto Rico now, or they're just not coming to Florida now. But it's important to realize that this isn't my fault. It's these politicians, because how can we expect people to come to Florida if they're not going to be safe? Mm-hmm. It's as simple as that. Mm-hmm. My goal here is not to hurt small business owners. It's not to hurt the bigger business owners. It's to get action and save some lives. That's
and what's it like to be a lightning rod, though? You've had some people be aggressive toward you?
Oh, absolutely. I've had many people be very aggressive towards me, even at school, like I was talking about earlier. It's been interesting. It's been more infuriating and energizing than it is exhausting, as interesting as that may sound. But just working as hard as I can. 1 second. I'm sure there's a lot of people asking about California now, and why I was out there. I lived in California. I was born in Beverly Hills. I lived in Torrance, California until I was at the age of 14. I moved out here in the middle of my freshman year. I went to South Torrance High School in Torrance, California. I moved out here in the middle of my freshman year because we needed to live in a place that was a cheaper place where we could afford to live, cheaper than Los Angeles. So I moved out here, and that's when I started living in South Florida, and I actually moved here in part because of Marjory, Stoneman, Douglas. And as I was living out here, every summer I would go back to California to visit some of my friends, and that one day where that lifeguard came up, I am a journalist by heart, and I knew that guy was honestly being a jerk, so I took out my phone and recorded him, and that's what happened with that video. I posted it on Reddit, it got to the front page, and that's how it started getting so many views. And then I came back to California. I was interviewed by that person just because of the viral video that was going on. But honestly, it's just going back out to Florida, or going back out to California to be with my friends over the summer, because it gets hotter than Hades out here, and I hate it. I honestly do. But when I'm in California, I can be with my friends, enjoy the nice, cool beach, and enjoy my life.
Okay. Let me ask you, part of the issue here is absolutely gun control, in my opinion. But part of the issue here, too, is the government's response to what happened at the school. What happened before and what happened during, and, as we've talked about, what's happening now afterward. What is your feeling about, let's talk about BSO. How are you feeling about Sheriff Israel these days? Ellie?
I think that his support for the movement was good. I think that the issues with the police officers is just, I don't even know what to say. It's just so frustrating that we were counting on the fact that someone was going to step in. We were counting on the fact that people were going to make efforts to save a life. If someone could have stepped in, something could have happened. While it possibly could have been another casualty, I think that it's just terrifying to think that no one was going to do anything.
And if those teachers wouldn't if those school resource officers wouldn't step in, why would a teacher? Why would a teacher? I think what we're going to have happen if we are more teachers is we're going to have more incidents of, honestly, just accidents where people end up killing themselves by accident or on purpose because they have the firearm at their disposal.
And what's your opinion of the sheriff?
Of sheriff? I don't really want to say anything too specific because we don't have the full investigation out. We don't know everything that happened, but as of now, I think that there definitely were mistakes that were made, but there are also mistakes that have to hold the sheriff accountable. They also have to hold the people that are in charge of the sheriff accountable, and that's Governor Rick Scott. He has to be held accountable. What these politicians are trying to do is push the blame off on the people that they're in charge of. Like if you had a sibling and they got food poisoning, imagine a scenario where you keep blaming the manager and you never go to the actual company. It's the company that's really at fault here, and it's also the manager too. But you have to acknowledge both.
Okay, we have a question in here
Yes,
from.
a good question. Someone's asking how people in this area, local people, can get involved with #NeverAgain, what they can do.
That's a great question. Let me think here. Honestly, just getting out and marching. I know that many of you won't be able to get to Washington, D.C., but we have over 750 sister marches across the country. That's March 24th, by the way. If you are a student, you can step out of school on March 14th and take action that way. If you get suspended, honestly, that's a pretty badass college essay. But
I think one of the things too is that people are saying, get registered to vote and vote,
Seriously.
and get somebody else registered to vote and make sure they vote and
make
drive
sure they
them to
get
the
there.
polls
Yeah.
if that's what it takes.
yeah,
Voting's a big
and wait in line. Realize that when there are these long lines, I believe in Florida at least, it is illegal for them to close the polls before you're able to vote.
Yeah, if you're in line by 7 o'clock. Okay, I'm going to ask one last final question, and then, because we're going to bring it to a close now. So I'm going to ask one final question, and then if there's something, after that question you want to say as sort of here's what you want to leave people with. But my question is about this is a tough one. Okay, so the public defender has suggested that a way to help this community heal faster is for to allow the shooter to plead guilty and have him be sentenced to 17 life in prison sentences, basically lock him up and throw away the key. That if that happens, the community, the families, everybody would avoid the trauma of 3 years of hearings and expert witnesses and depositions and rulings, 3 years to get, a guilty plea. Then you get one juror in a 12 in the sentencing phase of that could say, no, I can't sentence to death, and then there's appeals. What is your opinion on the offer of the public defender to get this thing over now, and rather than have this trial and the appeals and 13 years, lock them up and throw away the key?
I think I have two opinions on that. One, I think that my opinion in this situation is not valid because I didn't have a child die here. None of my best friends died.
Right.
So it's really those people that should be speaking on that. But on my part, I think if there was a long hearing and the media was able to cover that, that'd be good. We would be able to keep this in the national conversation and make sure that people continue this process, because we shouldn't have to do any more healing after this. This should be the last mass shooting. That's why we say never again. What do you guys think?
I think that personally, elongating this process will keep giving us attention, and I think that the issue will still remain relevant, and I think that it should always remain relevant until something actually gets passed. I think that while it is important to celebrate the small victories, we can still be pushing until we actually get what we want. I think that there's definitely a polarization and a division among what to do, but that the continual routine is to basically suggest that, oh, I disagree with you, and you're going to think this, and we're going to agree to disagree. But I think that we need to keep pushing this into discussion, and we need to keep talking about this until we actually get something done. There's been a lot of talk and a lot of hearsay, we'll do this, but I think that we actually need to do something, and that while it's not personally my decision, and I think that that should definitely go to the families, as David said, I don't think that we should really be doing this. I think that we should just continue the way it is.
And what about you, Sari?
I think it should definitely be up to the families. They were the most affected, but at the same time, it would be nice to have that attention. But even if that doesn't happen, we are so passionate that this movement will continue no matter what, even if it is in the spotlight, even if it is not. We will make sure it stays in the spotlight no matter the circumstance.
Okay. Is there any final statement that, let me start with you. They're sort of look into the camera and tell people what you want them to walk away from this with.
I want you to walk away knowing that your voice is important, that you need to stand up to the NRA and stand up to our elected officials and do something about this. 17 people died. children, teachers, faculty members, I think that it's important to actually do something and participate. March 24th, try and do whatever you can to get to DC, to participate in a march and continue being active in your community. Activism is so important to actually let your voice be heard so that you can actually do something. I think that it's just so necessary to continue to be active and don't stop fighting and never give up on this issue. I think that while there is difficulties and while things are not happening right away, I think it's important that you keep going and keep pushing until you get what you want. People are going to settle and think that we should stop, but I think that it's important, so important, to actually do something and continue until we get legislation passed. I think that you should stop voting for anyone supported by the NRA and continue until we achieve our goal.
Thank you. Sari?
These 2 weeks have been extremely difficult for all of us, and we need your help so this doesn't have to happen again. So the best way to do this is to participate in our movement, but to vote. Make sure your voice is heard by voting. And in addition, by being educated on the topic, to make sure you understand what you are talking about, so then when you go to vote, you understand who you are voting for before you make that final decision.
And David?
We're not trying to take your guns. We're trying to save lives. Realize that we were just searching for reasonable gun legislation and mental health care reform that everybody can come together and fight for. This is a nonpartisan issue. 17 people died. We cannot forget that, and we have to continue fighting, because if we don't, how many more people, just like us, are going to have to die? And along with us goes our future. And the other thing is, if you have not registered to vote, get out there and register to vote. It is absolutely crucial that you vote. No matter what your opinion is, you must make your voice heard, because if you don't, the NRA and different special interests will on your behalf. So get out there and vote. We're not trying to take your guns. I'm not an actor. I'm an activist. Get out there and vote, make your voice heard, and let's save some lives.
Okay, I'd like to thank David Hogg, Sari Kaufman, Ellie Branson for coming and joining us today. Tomorrow at 3:30, we're going to have a similar conversation with teachers. We're bringing 4 different teachers from Broward in to have a conversation from their point of view. So thank you all for tuning in. Follow the coverage at sunsentinel.com and join the movement at Never Again. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.